Hey friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to bring you my wrap-up video for my Copic marker alternative mini series that I've been doing on my channel. In case you've missed it, I have been testing out different kinds of alcohol markers and seeing how they compare to the Copics that I have been using for the past 14 years. My friend Heather, who is an artist and an illustrator and a children's book author, lent me this giant tote full of different kinds of alcohol markers, and I have been taking each set, swatching them out, and doing a coloring sample so that you guys can kind of see what you can get from that kind of set from someone who has a fair bit of experience coloring with alcohol markers. So yeah, today I just wanted to go over the final thoughts, maybe rank them in order from worst to best, and yeah, just kind of close out this little mini series. So let's go ahead and go over the first set of markers that I reviewed. So the first set of markers that I reviewed was the 18 count alcohol markers from Five Below. These retailed for $5, so they were very inexpensive. They were a pastel set, so the colors that were included were only pastel shades. And here are the swatches that I had done. I had flesh tones into pinks, into blues, into greens, and then yellow. There were only 18 shades, so that was the entire range that you got in that set. And then this was the coloring sample, which I really struggled with these markers. I just did not find them very user-friendly. I thought the color palette was very limiting. I thought there were too many duplicate markers. These three flesh tones here are almost identical. Some of the pinks ended up being almost identical. There was only one yellow in the entire set, and I just didn't find it very user-friendly. There is an additional set in this marker series. There is a bright set as well, but even adding those to this set, I really don't think that you would be able to get the kind of results that you would want if you're somebody who wants to improve, you know, with coloring. If you're somebody who just wants to try it as like a hobby that you're not going to do very much and it's not that important to you, the results, you just want to play, maybe in that case. But other than that, even for $5, this was not a marker set that I recommended. So let's move on to the second marker set, and that was these markers here from Amazon. So this was a 48 marker set, and they retailed for $12.99. Much wider variety. We also had a 0 marker in here. This is the colorless blender, so that is important for a lot of different techniques and even just correcting mistakes. This one retailed for $12.99. I'm not sure if I said that. And here were the swatches. So they were very saturated and deep. I found that there were not a lot of pastels in this set. It didn't specifically say that it was brights, but I did find it to be more on the bright side. So we have a lot more markers here because, you know, it's more than twice as many as the 18 count. So seems at first glance like there's a decent variety, but I just did not enjoy working with these at all. These are the results that I got. Her face is especially, it looks like she's had like nuclear level burns to it. But you know, it just, I couldn't make it work. The flowers aren't as bad. The greens didn't really blend together. The yellows didn't really blend together. It tore through my paper a little bit. There was no lighter shades to use for her wings, so that was kind of frustrating. So once again, even though 48 markers is a fairly decent price for only $13, I did not recommend these, and you know, maybe if it's like for kids or something, or again, in the first situation where you're just doing it for fun and you don't really care about the results you're going to get, maybe. But other than that, if you're somebody that actually wants to color and be pleased with the results that you're getting, I just don't see how this marker set is going to work for that. So after that, we moved on to our third set of markers, and these were one of the most requested to review on my channel, and that was the Ohuhus. Again, we had 48 colors, but here we had a little bit of a higher price point. These retailed for $21.24 when Heather purchased them. Of course, she purchased them on Amazon, and Amazon prices do fluctuate, so I'm not positive that that would be what they are right now, but that was what she paid for them when she got them. Again, there is no indication of what kind of set this is on the packaging, but the colors did end up being quite bold. The one thing I did like about this one, which actually was my favorite of all 4 sets of markers, was the case. I really loved that all of the markers stay in their position, and when you pull one out, the others don't fall down, which means that you can arrange them in the order that you like to color. So I would arrange these in rainbow order because that's the way I have my Copics. It just makes sense for my brain. And I really appreciated that each marker had its own spot and didn't shift. And this was the only set that was the case. These were also quite different from some of the other markers. They had a triangular barrel, and they had a brush nib rather than the other 2 marker sets had a bullet nib. This one did have a brush nib, but it was small and fairly firm. So that was a little bit of an improvement on the other 2. But here are the color swatches for this set of Ohuhu markers. Again, we have the flesh tones into pinks, into purples, blues, into greens, yellow, oranges, which there was no bright orange in this set, which was a bit peculiar. There was kind of this salmony orange. I wouldn't still call that a bright orange. It's a bit more pink leaning, but that's the only orange that there is aside from the rush shades. And then we had a fair bit of gray tones plus a colorless blender. So we have that 0 marker in there that was included. And these were the results. So it's a little bit of an improvement from the other 2 sets. I still wasn't happy with it, but there were improvements in certain things. Her skin isn't terrible. I'm not happy with her hair, but again, it's a huge improvement from the other sets. The greens didn't really want to blend together. Those were kind of fighting for space. I also tried to blend the blues into the turquoise into the green. That wasn't very successful. The flowers weren't too bad. The red tones, I had to use one of these orange shades because there were only 2 reds, no dark light, dark medium light. So I had to use that, and you can see that as that dried, it really started to push the reds away. So it's not the kind of blend that I'm used to or enjoy. Also, the purple shades were super saturated. There were no lighter shades at all to use for a highlight. And the same with the blues. Everything was deeply saturated, no pastels whatsoever, even though on the packaging we see pastels in the illustration that they've put there. But anyway, definitely an improvement, I would say, but still not to the level that I'm used to coloring with Copics. So that was our 3rd set. And our 4th and final set was also Ohuhus, but these were the Ohuhu Honolulu markers, which are quite different from the other Ohuhus that I reviewed. They look completely different in the barrel size, in the barrel shape. They also have a much larger tip than the others. So just for comparison, I'll pull out one of those. So you can see them side by side. So this is an Ohuhu marker and this is an Ohuhu marker, but they are so different. Everything is different from the outside of the barrel to the inside of the barrel. The nibs are different. This one is small and firm. This one is longer and a little bit softer. So the Ohuhu markers again was the Ohuhu Honolulu markers. Was again a 48 marker set, but this one was the most expensive by far. This one retailed for $49.99 when Heather purchased it, so $50. So it's a little bit more than $1 per marker. It did include the colorless blender, so that was good. This was specifically labeled as a pastel set, so we only had pastels to work with. But here are the samples. So I swatched them in the same order that I did with the other two sets. We have the flesh tones. We have more pinks in this set. So I did the cooler tone pinks into the warmer tone pinks. We have some oranges, yellow such as it is, and then into the greens, the blues, and then the purples, and then we had a whole lot of grays in this set. Again, there were a fair bit of duplicates in this set, like these two are almost identical. Let's see, some of the blues were almost identical. Some of the greens were not far enough apart to really have a lot of contrast. The grays were really interesting because there were just so many and so many different types, from red grays and green grays, and there was even a yellow gray down here. So lots of those if you're looking to color neutral things. And then here was the results. So by far the best results of any of the 4 sets of markers that I reviewed. Is it perfect? No. Is it up to the standard of what I'm used to with Copics? Not quite. But then again, this was only a pastel set, so I only had pastel shades to work with. If I had had more of a mixed range, I maybe could have gotten even better results. But after the other 3 fails, or what I felt like were total fails, I was pretty pleased with these results. So not bad. So definitely a higher price point for these markers, but I felt like the quality was much improved, the color range was much improved, the blendability was much improved as compared to the other 3 sets. So just to fully compare, I wanted to show you some of the same images that I've colored with Copic markers, and this is a video on my channel, so if you want to see the Copics in action compared to some of the other videos that you might have watched, you can go back and watch that. All of the coloring is in that video. So again, you know, it's just the blend, you can tell, is so much better on this card than anything else that I sampled for you guys. And even though I do have a much wider variety of Copics to pull from, because I have been collecting them for 14 years, I still only stuck to about the same amount of colors as I used on any of those other samples, because I like to limit myself to about 5 to 7 colors so that my cards have a cohesive feel to them. So I stuck to like a warmer purple, a cooler purple, a blue, a pink, a green, and like neutral shades. So that's all I used for this entire card, which is no different from the rest of these samples. So just side-by-side comparison, I'll pull out all of the rest of these samples for you. Give me one sec to just pull these all out. So here are the 4 samples from the 4 sets of markers that I used, you know, as a Copic alternative. And you can kind of see the difference there between all 4 of those. And then there is the Copic version. Let me move these markers out of the way now. So hopefully you can see that on screen, the difference. To me, it's a huge, huge difference. Just the blendability, the way that the markers kind of lay next to each other and overlap each other is just much, much more seamless with Copics. Again, you know, I can't judge at least the Ohuhu Honolulus too harshly because I only had pastels to work with. And if I had only used pastel shades on this card, you know, maybe I would have had a similar result to this here. That's hard to judge because I could only review what I had to work with for each of these sets. But anyway, as far as rating the markers in order from worst to best, I would say, in my opinion, I think the Amazon markers were actually probably the worst when you compare the price, the blendability, the color range. Even though there are more colors in this set than there were in the Five Below, I think the results were much worse in this coloring sample than they were with the Five Below. So I would say that the Amazon were my least recommended, followed very closely, if not almost tied, by the Five Below markers. I just really would not recommend these to anybody unless you're like a child or, like I said, you just kind of don't really care about the results. Then I would place the Ohuhu, the regular Ohuhu markers at a third, but low third. It's like maybe like a C-. And then the best out of the 4 was by far the Ohuhu Honolulu. So you kind of get what you pay for when it comes to these alcohol markers. These were the most pricey at $50 for a set of 48, so that's more than $1 per marker. It's still cheaper than Copics, so, you know, maybe this is something that would work for you if you have a budget that you want to stick to and still want to be able to collect a lot of markers. But for my personal preference and for the many years that I have been coloring, and based on the fact that I already own a good amount of Copics, not all, but a lot, I am not going to be switching to any other kind of marker. I'm going to be sticking to my Copics. In my opinion, they're still the best. I think that they are worth the price point, but they are quite a bit pricier than the Ohuhu Honolulus. So take that, you know, with a grain of salt and make your own judgments. But anyway, that's what I just wanted to share with you today to kind of close out this little mini series. I do not plan to review any other types of markers unless somebody I know ends up purchasing some. I don't want to waste my money on purchasing other sets of markers just for the sake of reviewing them. I would rather spend my money on stamps or dies or something like that, or more Copics for my collection, or even just refills, because Copics are refillable. I'm not sure if the Ohuhus are or not. Somebody can let me know. If they are not refillable, that does factor into the price point, because you would have to replace the whole marker each time it runs out, whereas with Copics you could just refill them. So anyway, that's the end of this mini series for now. And like I said, if I end up coming across somebody who has another set of alcohol markers that I can borrow and review, maybe I will. But for now, this is the close of this series, and thank you so much to my dear friend Heather for lending me all of these markers and letting me keep them for over a month so that I was able to put out all of these videos for you guys. So thank you so much for watching. Check out this video again if you want to see the Copics in action, coloring the same types of Hello Bluebird images that I used for the rest of these samples. And I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye-bye.